Okay, couple of things I just wanted to talk about before we even dive into the book. I always like to announce it so like people who are listening or watching on YouTube. So it's The Midnight Library by Matt Haig is the way I think that you say it. Is that correct? Does anybody know if I'm saying that wrong? You know me, I pronounce
Hey,
everything
I
wrong.
think it's Haig.
That's right. I need phonetics. So um, the thing I wanted to talk about and take a moment just to explain are trigger warnings and what those are and like how they apply to this book in particular before we even dive into it. So, trigger warnings are things that bring up bad feelings inside of us that remind us of something that we went through. It makes us so uncomfortable that it's almost intolerable or that we need outside resources to help us. The reason why I take this one so seriously is because I experienced this. So I'll just put myself out there on that. I spent a small time in my life having suicide ideation and attempted suicide, thankfully not successfully. But if that's something that you've ever experienced and you've started to read this book or you want to read this book and it starts to make you uncomfortable, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not go forward. That is what I would want you to do. So if that's a problem for you and it's too much, then I want you to just like pause the video and come back to this on a better day. And there are resources that I'm going to leave on our video and also tell people my favorite place to go is to write Love on Her Arms on the website. It reaches out to all different types of people. It's also one that doesn't contact the police if you're struggling, and it gives you can do chat or phone. So that's all I wanted to say about that. So going forward, I have a feeling that everybody's okay discussing it. If you aren't, that's all right. You're free to leave. And then if that's okay, everybody okay? Yeah, okay. The flip side of this book is I feel like we're going to get a spin on this, and it might actually help people who struggle with this sort of type of thing. At least that's the feedback I've gotten from a couple of people. It said that made you like feel like, oh, well, maybe things aren't as bad as I thought they were. Hearing the alternative to how things could be. So I'm hoping it gives us some hope. However, I was blindsided, and I wonder if everybody else was too, because the description of the book says it's a feel good, happiest book of the year type of thing. And I'm reading the first like three chapters, and I'm just like, the cat and the suicide, like, what's happening here? What, you know? So I wasn't prepared, is all I wanted to make sure we started with. Okay, good, cool thing. So, announcement we have merch. Um, we're going to put this on YouTube and on a podcast. And I'm going to start writing authors to have them appear. So, any of your favorite authors that are able or like, you know, would do this sort of thing, send them to me. I'll send them on the PR list. Last thing for announcements are so I went through all the way back 9 meetings to figure out who had the best attendance to win the merch thing. And the only two were Stephanie and Jessica because Jameson wasn't here yet. They started on Wild. So although Jameson has had perfect attendance, thank you. Just Jessica and Stephanie did all 9. So I since it's only 2 people, I think, and you guys both have won awards, I thought I would send you both some merch. So there's no reason for a raffle because there's not like 10 people. But we do have a contest to do for the submissions for the quiz, but we'll do that after we get started on the questions. We'll do that at the end. So I can start hearing your guys' opinions. I'm excited. So I wanted to start with just getting into it. What were your favorite quotes? And we'll start with, we like to start in opposite alphabetical order. So we'll start with Victoria, if you have any, or any type of like theme that you really loved or that set out to you, like stood out.
For sure. I have a few highlighted quotes because I'm listening to the audiobook version. So that was an interesting adaptation exercise. I was like, oh, this is starting way darker than I thought it was going to. So you're not alone if you were blindsided. But okay, so the 4 that I had, the first one was you lose your job, then more shit happens. I know Exulians. There are a few on this call. Like, we've been through some stuff where we lost a job by surprise, but out of our control. And just like, so that one like kind of stood out to me, just like that is so true. Because I like that was like the beginning of it felt like a domino effect for a lot of things for me. The next one that I highlighted was she was antimatter with added self-pity. I was just that one really that whole antimatter chapter really felt very realistic and just felt like very familiar and I was like, "Oh, this is yeah, we're navigating this." So at least I was able to like put it on like 2x speed and get through it kind of quickly and like not have to sit with it through pages and pages like all of you have, and I can't wait to hear about how that went for y'all. Um, the third one I picked was you don't go to death, death comes to you. Um, None of us are, you know what I mean, for the most part, currently actively seeking death, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like that one made me just stop and think about like how I don't know, how death has shown up for me. And then the last one that I really liked was doing one thing differently is often the same as doing everything differently. And yeah, that one just stuck out to me because of, okay, first off, I love the premise. I'll talk more about this, but like the premise of like infinite possibilities in every choice is like so, yeah, that makes my brain explode in a good way. But yeah, just thinking like of the butterfly effect, so to speak, of like if you take a different route home, you know what I mean? Even like something small. Sometimes things are like sometimes that, the reason for it is immediately like present, but other times it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll never know. But it's yeah, that one got me thinking. Doing one thing differently is often the same as doing everything differently. I think that was probably my favorite.
I love that too, just so that you know. It hit me right in the feels because I swear, I think down to very specific details of what we do during the day can change the course of everything. The big thing, like there's that quote that says, like, it feels as if nothing has changed, yet everything has. When you've taken some time away from a situation, that's how that felt. Like, well, I didn't purposely change anything, but everything's. I'm different, you know? How about you, Stephanie?
So, sorry, my favorite quote by far was the best way to learn is to live. That really hit me because you you don't learn if you don't live. You're not gonna make mistakes, you're not going to, everybody has regrets, everybody has everything, and you know, it just that's what struck me. That was my favorite one. And then where it says this library is called the Midnight Library because every new life on offer here begins now. So there's a lot of new beginnings. There's positivity in the book. It's just right now, with the whole suicide thing and
There
it's
is.
hard. Yeah.
You're right. You're so right. There's an underlining of a silver lining there, and you can feel it. It's very palatable. It almost makes you feel like the writer has gone through something like this before. And I love the quotes that you chose. Those were a couple of my favorites too. Although I wish we didn't have to live to find out, right? Like, can't we just get an
Mhm.
instruction manual and get it over with? Can't you just tell me what not to do here? Because I don't want to go through the pain, but you can't really learn unless you do, unfortunately. How about you, Patty? Did you have any favorite quotes or any things that really stood out to you? I know you had commented in the group how impactful it's been.
Yeah, like I wasn't expecting it. Like I'm like a ball of emotions over this book. Like legitimately, like and I don't read books like this. So I was like, I'm gonna hate it, but I want friends, so I'm gonna join this club anyways. And it's just I don't know. So like it's my whole thing, like right now, obviously the suicide is very triggering, but like the cat. That was such a cruel lesson. And like I've been thinking about this cat all day. Like I'm at the zoo, I'm with my family, I'm eating Chinese food, and I'm like thinking back to this cat. And I never actually marked in a book before, so this is like a big deal. I've never done that. So and forgive me if I cry, I'm just a baby. Um, but it was and Bolts was dead, so nothing changed. Miss Elm's eyes twinkled, except you. And I'm like, ah. And then the second thing was I was bad at looking after Voltaire. Or wait, once she flicked to the last page, she saw one of her very last regrets. I was bad at looking after Voltaire slowly disappear from the page. Sometimes regrets aren't based on fact at all. Sometimes their regrets are just a load of bullshit. And I have a lot of regrets in my life, and I wonder if they're really that big of a deal. You know? Is it that impactful? I mean, obviously her cat died. It was awful. And that there's nothing that's gonna fix that. But like, I don't know. I wonder if my mistakes really are mistakes.
What really hit me about the cat, I'm thinking about the cat too. I can't get the cat out of my, I'm totally just blindsided by the cat. And I think we all feel more for animals than we do for people. Like I can watch a show or a movie and, a human dies, no big deal. A cat or a dog dies and I'm just like destroyed. So it stuck with me too. I think what was really interesting is how personal she took his death. Like she took full responsibility for it, but he would have died anyway from the heart disease. You know what I mean? Like, how many times do we take that on when necessarily wouldn't, it's not us, it's just the universe. It's just the way it was supposed to be.
Their fault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really has me spinning because I do that a lot. I think we all do. Oh, Victoria, I know. You lost your pup when I lost my Penny Lane of 17 years. And I remember us discussing it, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's devastating to lose an animal. And then you question yourself, did I do everything I could? It's just awful. But yes, it stuck with me too, Patty. Absolutely. And then I believe Booty would be next.
You guys all picked pretty much everything I did. But I really enjoyed the whole communication between Mrs. Elm and Nora with the "you don't go to death, death comes to you." It really, that whole passage just resonated with me.
Yes, absolutely.
And the cat, that that hurts. Like, and it made me feel good to know, like, that's why my question was a part of that. Like, it made me feel good to know that she did nothing wrong. If anything, she prolonged his life.
I know. I was like crying, like so, like I felt like maybe I had done something wrong by keeping my dog alive for 17 years. All of it is so visceral and relatable. Like it's a very good writer, is all I've got to say. But we talked about it in our last book about death and in Wild. It's just something we have absolutely no control of. They put people in hospice and you think they're going to die immediately, and they take forever. Oh, 19 years, Stephanie. I'm so sorry. It's in the chat about, just a few months back. Pet deaths are the worst, right? Because it's this little thing, it's so innocent and it's part of your everyday life. Sometimes it's harder than losing a person that you only see once or twice a year. It's tough stuff, really tough. And I think that would be Kristen would be next. Kat, Kristen goes next.
I would say it's the part where it says, after the wine, a realization hit her with total clarity. She wasn't made for this life. Every move had been a mistake, every decision a disaster, every day a retreat from who she'd imagined she'd be. And then also the one where it says, well, Miss Elm is talking to her, says, while the Midnight Library stands, Nora, you will be preserved from death. Now you have to decide how you want to live.
Good ones, good ones. If anything, it's inspiring. So, yeah, absolutely. Really good choices. How about Jessica?
So I had a lot of the ones that other people had, but another one that really stuck out to me was go confidently in the direction of your dreams, Thoreau had said. Live the life you've imagined. Thoreau had been her favorite philosopher to study, but who seriously goes confidently in the direction of their dreams? Well, apart from Thoreau. He'd gone and lived in the woods with no contact from the outside world to just sit there and write and chop wood and fish. But life was probably simpler 2 centuries ago in Concord, Massachusetts than modern life in Bedfordshire. Or maybe it wasn't. And like all of the first chapters before she gets to the Midnight Library were really, really, really hard for me. I've struggled with suicidal ideation. I've dealt with all sorts of mental health struggles. And I have to say that I still spend a good deal of time living in a lot of the same mindsets that Nora has as far as being that deep in depression. It's something that I'm working on and I struggle with. But for me, it was really, like someone else had said, like kind of cathartic to read and see, see someone else struggling in some of the same ways with regret, because a lot of my depression is rooted in some very, very, very deep regrets. So yeah, just like the themes of regret are really hitting home for me.
I agree. So I love Henry David Thoreau, and he's always been one of my favorite writers. In fact, I did a whole expose on him when I was taking American literature in college. But one of my favorite quotes from him is that he goes into the forest to lose his mind and find his soul, and when he comes out, he's taller than the trees. It completely transitions him in his life and makes him a totally different person. And he faced some kind of like Cheryl Strayed a little bit. He faced these like really big fears and overcome them. It's fascinating that in her, I forget what she called it. She refers it to her like her base life, the one that she starts with before she goes to the Midnight Library. She lives in like a state of fear all the time. Yet she studied him as a philosopher and like majored in philosophy. Like you would think that that would have transitioned her way of living a little bit, but it didn't. So I find that really interesting too. Also, I think if I went to that library, at least half of it would be my book of regret. Um, Really. How about you, Jameson?
I actually had a couple. When she went to into her life where she had married Dan, she said she wondered how many Dans there were in the world dreaming of things that they would hate if they actually got them, and how many were pushing other people into their delusional idea of happiness. And then in her one where she was a swimmer, she's like, if you aim to be something that you're not, you will always fail. Aim to be you. Aim to look and act and think like you. Aim to be the truest version of you. Embrace the you-ness, endorse it, love it, work hard at it, and don't give a second thought when people mock it or ridicule it. Most gossip is envy in disguise. Keep your head down, keep your stamina, keep swimming.
I love that so much. So that was the beginning of that was the quote that I chose. Um, because it is the one thing that has changed my life. It's just accepting myself as I am instead of trying to put my little unusual triangle in every square and circle that I can find, and I never fit, and it's so frustrating. That's so cool that you chose the whole thing because it's really I gotta do myself. Emily, how about you? I'm so sorry you're muted. Did you down in the left hand corner? Oh, it's not letting you. Okay. Let me see. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Did you get a little message? Or I can maybe unmute you up here myself. Let me find you. There we go. Ask to unmute. No, that's so unusual. Hmm. That is, are you on your phone or are you on a computer? I can read lips. I'm deaf in one ear. You're on your laptop. Okay. Um, Go ahead and go out and come back in. Perfect. Thank you. Do you know how to leave? I see you. I won't let you leave. Let me boot you. I'll remove you and you can come back. Oh, and what's my email address? That's weird. Okay, hold on 1 second. I've never had to boot anybody before. There we go. Okay. All right. So she's gone. Hopefully she'll come back in. And I have, like, we're waiting on her. I really want to hear her quotes. It should tell me where to admit her when it does. So go out of the chat and come back in. It's so crazy, all the little gadgets and gizmos they have when you host these things. I'm not usually on this side of the I kind of just tune in at work. I don't really do any of this host stuff. So Stephanie had tons of questions that I thank you for very much. Your feedback and input is so invaluable to me because your guys' questions are so different from mine. And I think that's the coolest part of this and what makes reading the book so much fun for me. So you had your first question, and I wonder if this is why you asked this, because your favorite color is green, but you wanted to know what everybody thought about her books on being the different shades of green, and then her regret book is gray, right? So we would start at the beginning now, so we'll come back to Jameson.
I wasn't sure why they were all green. I wondered, was that her favorite color? But I thought, like, what color are my books? That's I just kept reading it thinking why, and they're like different shades of green, and I'm like, I want them to tell me what that means. But I didn't really give much. I think I was so engrossed in the process of what she was going through that I didn't really contemplate why they were green, or if I was pretty sure everyone's books weren't green, but yeah, I don't know.
It stood out to me too by the like second or third one, and it was a different shade. I was like, why green? Look
Yeah.
I don't think my books are green. Jessica, how about you? Did you pick up on it, and did you have an explanation?
I hadn't really thought a whole lot about it other than, so my mom was is an artist, and she has a degree in art, and she really like drilled like color theory and into, because like she also has a degree in psychology. So like my thought was like, oh, that makes sense that they're green because it's calming, and like that's the color that they use in like institutions. Like I don't know why, like my brain just went there. Was like, oh yeah, it's like probably just like to calm, to be calming.
Right. Well, it makes sense. So I was thinking if she wasn't successful in her attempt and she's like in a coma or something, maybe everything around her is that like hospital green, you know? There's a possibility of that. I think you're onto something. I do. I do a lot of like aura reading for green. And green also happens to be people who are into like philosophy and psychology. They usually love green. So that's interesting. I think Kristen would be next. Did you have any thoughts on the green books? Did you pick up on it?
Yeah, I think I thought it was something to do with her level of envy and the lightness within her like soul. So like the more maybe envious she was, or the heavier her soul was in that life, was the darker, murkier green, and the lighter it was the lighter color. Because it does mention envy in the book, but that's really what she is she's looking around at everyone else in her life, in her root life or whatever, and is thinking that they have things that she doesn't have, that she should have at the age that she is. And so that's envy, so that's kind of why I thought maybe the green was from.
Yeah, that is also a symbol for, you're right. You're exactly right. That makes me wonder. I believe Udi would be next.
I was thinking something similar around that because the different shades of green could be like a different kind of how happy she could be in one life or how sad she could be in one life, or different emotions based on the colors. And I think that could be something, but what Kristen said could I agree with that too.
Fascinating. What about you, Patty?
Okay, so I went a completely different route. And the first thing I thought about were plants. And I thought about how this forest, this library probably emulates some type of forest. And all of these books, everything she's growing because she's learning about herself and she's learning about all the bullshit that she, should or should not regret. And I just think about each of these greens being a different type of plant to emulate the growth that she is going to receive from it. Like the book with Dan, like that green, it just kind of makes me think of like a big, beautiful tree that she like is growing out of and remembering why she didn't want to be with him in the first place. He's kind of sucked. So I just think of it as different amounts of growth.
Yeah, so when she's describing that library, which I think is really funny, but she talks about how it smells like nature. It smells very fresh. It doesn't smell like old books, which I think is like, I did a candle back in 2018, and one of my scents in it is old books. So I love that smell. But she's like, it doesn't smell stuffy and old. That's a really good point, Patty. You might be onto something with that. I wonder if that's where the fresh smell comes from. Um, cool. Stephanie, how about you? Clearly you had a thought about this. This is your question.
So I love what everybody has said so far, but my train of thought was going to because she's a big environmentalist, and maybe it has to do with how much she could actually, take care of the earth in different lives. That's what I'm wondering.
It clearly has something, I think, maybe to do with her core personality. It's kind of like what everybody is returning back to. But I also like the idea that she's in some type of healing place, I'm hoping. How about you, Victoria?
All of you are smarter than me. Because I didn't really think about it. I just thought like maybe the length of the books meant like, okay, this choice meant like this kind of longevity in the experience. Like y'all have completely blown my mind, but I do think there might be something to the plant theory, considering I did write down like about the scent because I'm like a fragrance collector, like on a legendary scale. And so like when I like as soon as I got the notes, I like started combing through my like catalog to try to like maybe find something that I think would emulate it. And I'm still on the search, but yeah, the fact that it smelled like lush and green and like growth instead of like an old library, I definitely noted. So I definitely want to add some credence or weight to the like maybe they're plants or like you know what I mean, seeds or growth theory. I think that's very interesting. You guys are very smart.
Yeah, I did not consider that. I did consider the shade. I don't know. I thought, oh, I don't think my books are green, but I did think like if it's a lighter green, maybe it's a happier or a shorter amount of time, and if it's a darker green, maybe it's deeper. The next, I want to talk about Kristen's question. Um, would there be a life to live that involved preconception for Nora? Like her relationships with her father wasn't great. So would there be a life that had her born to other people, or at least to another father? This is with the belief system of lives carrying on, of course. So I thought that was really cool. Can we go back before she's even conceived? Is that even possible? Um, I have my own opinion, but I don't want to influence anybody else. I really want to hear when we'll start back at Victoria.
So yeah, that makes me okay. So today I went to like a sound bath and the instructor of, my one of my she's actually my yoga mentor. And she's pregnant right now. And she's just got like extra like pregnant wisdom. Like she's just saying these like things and I'm just like, whoa. And just she talked about how like just for two zygotes to come together to like fertilize an egg, it's like a 1 in like 40 quadrillion chance. of happening. So it's like if we're talking about choice, right? And we're talking about like things choosing to like move one way or another to like predetermine or predestine this life. Yeah, I don't know. That makes my brain explode because I'm just like, whoa, like she could have definitely been born to different parents if that were the case, if we're like going to go back to conception. I I I have so many questions about like after the lives that we've already like lived with her, like what more we might see. I definitely am like looking forward to seeing if we like get that question answered, but right now I definitely don't think I have a question like that question answered at all for me. But yeah, I think it'd be like just an interesting concept to see if we end up seeing her with like different parents or you know what I mean, just a totally different predestination, so to speak.
Yes, I also thought the same thing. And I do, we do a lot of the similar activities. So I do sound baths all the time. I I personally, I only do them to support my wife. They make me extremely uncomfortable. The thoughts in my head are just awful, but it heals her. Like she's a totally different person. I'm sorry you didn't have my undivided attention. I was trying to help Emily get back in, but I love your thoughts. I really do. And next would be Stephanie.
I think that is actually a very interesting question. I'm I'm wondering if that's going to be answered too, because that would be very interesting, and that would explain why she can't find true happiness in any of those. If she was born to be destined, destined to be born to somebody else, or maybe she just needs to learn to deal, because there's bad with the good, no matter what life you're living. So that question, I don't know how it's going to be answered, but hopefully it will be.
Patty, what do you think? Would it be Patty? Patty, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I literally, like, I'm thinking about it, and there are things like there are concepts that I can easily grasp, but I feel like there's just a lot more there than I can grasp at this moment. Because if we were to go back to preconception and she was a different person, then whose library are we actually in? Does this story even about Nora anymore? Is a story about whoever? So it's an awesome question. I don't even know that I would be able to understand or begin to comprehend the answer. I'm kind of hoping that it doesn't get that crazy because I don't know that I would get it. But it's definitely a weird thing to think about.
It really is. So that's
So
exactly what
weird.
happened to me when I read Kristen's question. I was like, holy cow. That's like not even something I even thought.
Like Inception, you know?
Yes, 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 very much so. Welcome back, Emily. I'm so glad you got back.
Hey,
Yay.
I don't know what happened with my computer. It just like wigged out and I couldn't click anything. Like it wouldn't let me do anything. So I had to force shut it down. I
Oh,
don't use it very often and I don't know what it did. So we're on the phone.
I'm so glad you're here.
Oh.
I wanted to ask you before we move on to the
Yeah.
next question. Did you have any themes or quotes that stood out to you with the first part of the book that we've done?
A lot of what everybody else kind of was saying. I'm a big Thoreau fan as myself, so a lot of those themes and those parallels are kind of stand out to me. But one of the main things was just that like changing one thing can kind of change everything. I've had, like a lot of people have had a few things in my life that, one thing changes stuff and kind of the trajectory of your life kind of completely shifts. So yeah, like I'm from California originally and I'm in Ohio. So one choice completely changed. We actually have some friends in common. So
I find this so
yeah.
exciting. I'm so glad. So Udi is in California.
Oh wow.
So you have somebody who's from where you're originally from.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So glad. And so happy you're here. The other question we
Thanks.
covered while you were trying to get in is her books in the library are a shade of green. This was a question contributed by Stephanie.
Yeah.
We wanted to know, do you think that the shade of green has symbolism here at all? Like, do you think it means something? Does it stick out to you in any way?
A little bit. Like I was curious as to why they were green, but if we think about jealousy and the green-eyed monster, I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side. And so I think maybe that, because we do see that a little bit in the themes as she's kind of going through things, is it greener on the other side? She seems to have a little bit of that almost envy and jealousy of each individual life. I'm guessing somebody said something similar, of each individual life that she could have lived. So
Yes, that was what Kristen's theory was, and it's very on point. It's definitely a theme, absolutely. We're at Udi now, and it's Udi for everyone who's curious. That's the nickname. It's Udi, like Udi with a booty. So that's the way I remember it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know about Kristen's question. Do you think that so just so Emily is on board and knows what we're discussing, do you think that there was a possibility that we could see Nora pre-conception where she would have a different biological parent?
I think that if it does come to that, it would be addressed kind of like how the cat was. Like she didn't wish for it to be alive. And if she would have wished for it to be alive, she would have told her, no, that's not possible. And I would have told you right off the bat. So maybe if she tries to be like, because she kind of is able to pick what she wants. You know how she picked, like, I want to be that swimmer. I want to be the success story. I want this. I want this. I want this. So maybe if she says, well, I don't want the parent I had, especially after we learn how he was in infidelity and went after another swim coach in this last one. So I'm wondering maybe if it is, it's going to come up and she's going to say, yes or no.
I think we're going to hear a lot about the parents. I don't think somebody gets to this point in life where they're planning their death without some serious psychological issues in childhood. I will be really, really shocked if we don't find out that the mom and dad did some severe damage here. Okay, so the next would be Kristen. This is your question, so I want to hear your thoughts.
So the reason why I even thought of that is because the whole idea of her having these choices that have changed the trajectory of her life so drastically was actually really angering to me, because the trajectory of her life was started on the path it was based on decisions that were made for her by her parents. And she did not have any choice in those decisions. And then she made subsequent decisions based off of that. And so I was getting very, very angry at this whole idea of like, she has, as adults, you have ownership, but you don't have ownership for the whole path. You have ownership to a certain extent, but not the whole way. Like you didn't make decisions when you were 2, 3, 4, 5. Everyone else did around you. So that's why I was like thinking of like, okay, so if you believe in a subsequent life, say if you believe that you either have some say in the life that you want to live next or where you're at based on like karmic value and things like that, then would there be I don't know if it'll be answer or not, of course, but would there be a life or in a book in there that would allow her to pick a different start?
So that is where my mind went. So I didn't want to influence anybody, but since you've already said it, now I can give my input. But as somebody who believes in reincarnation and believes we keep coming back and we keep leveling up and learning lessons before we can go anywhere else, I was hoping that she would learn what she needed to learn there in the library from all these past experiences and then be able to choose a brand new book with a whole new library, which would be really cool. How about you, Jessica?
So I think it's a really interesting idea. Within the confines of the book, though, I think if Nora were to ask Ms. Elm, she would be like, so a Nora with any other parents wouldn't be Nora. and we would be in a different midnight library, and we would be looking at completely different books. And because I do think that who your parents are influences you so much that you would be a totally different person with different parents. You know, you wouldn't be the same at all. So I think that Ms. Elm is very, I see her as very kind of rule conforming, would be like that, look, that has nothing to do with you, that, and any other parents would be not Nora.
Unfortunately, I think that you're onto something with that. However, I like the possibility of leveling up and learning from your mistakes and regrets and being able to start brand new with different parents and things. But I don't think that's the theme of the book. How about you, Jameson?
I think I feel like it's the difference between existing in parallel universes and being reincarnated. Like I feel like it's kind of two different things. Um, if I had different parents, I wouldn't be who I am. Um, I feel like maybe if her parents had made different choices, maybe she would be different. Like those choices would have affected her, but I don't I don't feel like she has control over that. I feel like she really only has control over what her choices are, but I don't. I mean, that's just my theory. If I were writing the book, that would be my difference, but I don't know what he's gonna do. So
Right, the constraints of these like rules. First, I agree. I believe parallel universes are completely different. I think they're stacked on top of each other in this timeline versus reincarnation would be the next timeline. You know what I mean? But yeah, I wonder if she can choose books where her parents made different decisions or if it's just only ones that affect her. And if that's the case, I wonder how much the books, if that's why the books in the very beginning of her life were so small. That's really, yeah, always coming in with the mind blowing tidbits. How about you, Emily? Do you think that that would be possible?
Let me unmute there. Let me unmute this time. Um, my dogs get loud. Um, I'm a little in the thought process of that everybody's books within their library is different. So different parents would mean parents made different choices and we don't really have control. And I think that's kind of that main part of the theme of the book is we are only in control of our choices. And though our choices in life impact others around us within our life, and even though their choices do impact us, we only have control over ours. It's like my kids are grown now, but it's when they were small, it was always, you can't control your emotion, but you can control how you react to a situation. So it's kind of the same thing. So she's getting presented with these books and able to choose different scenarios, but the choices that she's made to get there, she doesn't know what those would have been. If she had only chosen to continue swimming, then this is one possible outcome. But she had no control over her father's infidelity, her brother's choices to do the band or not do the band. She had no control over that. She had no idea what those aspects were going to be within that story.
Very,
So
very true. Very true. So Victoria wanted to know what everybody thought about will Nora die? How many more lives she might get? And Aaron added on, if she decides to live, do we think she will choose a new life or continue back with the base life that she started with? Knowing what I'd like to add on to that. If she does choose her original life, will she know, will she carry these lessons with her? And then we would start back with Emily.
I think that she does carry them with her. I think that seems to be something because I'm a little bit ahead of where we're supposed to be because I listen at such a fast speed. So I apologize. And I'm trying really hard to remember where things are so I don't ruin anything for anybody. But as we see it progress, she's retaining the information from the previous ones. It doesn't like wipe the slate clean. So I think that even when she's out of the library, if she chooses to go back to her root life or whatever she chooses to stay in, I think she retains those lessons. And I think that's the point of the library.
Yeah.
Is that you get to have that thought process. You get to kind of see, if I don't want to die and I choose to continue my life, what path am I going to take and what lessons am I going to take from the ones that I looked at in moving forward and being a different person and being the better version of myself.
That poses the question here. So, do we think she gets the choice whether to live or die now? And if she does get the choice, do you think that she'll choose to live or to die?
I think she chooses to live if she gets the choice. I feel like you get the choice because Ms. Elma tells her you read them, you go through the books until you decide whether or not you want to stay in one. So it sounds to me like you get to choose at that point. But I feel like she's starting to kind of think that maybe her way out is not her way out, I think.
I think so too. How about you, Jameson?
I think that she's going to choose to go back to her original life. And maybe that's just me, like, that's what I would choose. But I think she gets to take back everything that she learns. Like, I, I used to be one of those people, like, I don't have any regrets, but like, then every 4 years when the Olympics would happen, I would have some sort of nervous breakdown because here's this thing I should have done. But I wouldn't want to be in a life where I had done that, but it wasn't me. Like, I don't remember having done it. Like, I don't want to accomplish a thing just for the sake of it. I wanted those memories and I wanted those accomplishments for me. So I can't imagine just like picking me up and putting me in a life where I have all these things that I think that I regret, but I don't really have the experience or the memories of them. Like I feel like that would make the situation worse. But if you go back to your root life and you have all these lessons, then you're equipped emotionally to like go forward and do whatever you want to do.
Having known what you didn't know, plus knowing what you did know in your old life, gives you more of an advantage. So you do feel that she will choose to live, or that she won't die when she's in this middle space.
Yeah, I think having learned everything, she'll choose to live and to go back. But
Okay, interesting. How about you, Jessica?
So I'm not sure what to think. So part of me thinks that ultimately, like, the lesson of the book is that like our attitude has to do with how happy we are. And I agree that that's the case to a certain degree, but I also get the feeling that Nora's root life is dead. Nora's root life is done. She can't go back to that. Um, I I kind of wonder if she picks a life. I also kind of wonder if she doesn't try and maneuver herself into Ms. Elm's position permanently in between, because she does have a long held habit of freezing or wanting that stasis. So I kind of suspect she's angling for Ms. Elm's job ultimately.
I think she's playing Russian roulette here. I think I get anxiety about her being in this library as former nurse. I'm like, dude, your body's back there. Like, we gotta get, we gotta get back. I don't want you to like flatline on me here. We gotta go. That's like what I'm feeling, but I'm trying to like we said before, like kind of suspend my disbelief and get into the fantasy of it. But yes, I also thought myself, maybe she's writing a new book with all these new experiences that she can take into a whole new place. Um, so, how about you, Kristen? What do you think?
I think that her root life, I think she'll go back to her root life. I don't think that that root life is dead because the Midnight Library is really between life and death. And when something that's root is dead, then it no longer ceases to exist. So if her root life was actually dead, then there would be no Midnight Library because there would be no like in between life and death. Um, is my thinking. And I think that she will eventually go back to her root life because she will realize that the pain of dying is greater than the pain of going into that life and making the changes that she like she
Okay,
will want to like she let me see if I'm saying this right that she basically her soul will no longer want to die
I
and her soul will want to go in and make the changes that she wants to make to have the life that she wants. She'll be able to create the life that she wants, you know.
I really, really love your optimism. I love what you bring here. I definitely insidious vibes. When she's in the library, I'm feeling some fear here. But with Kristen, thank you to always being somebody that can bring back the positive to me. Because if I were at this point in the book, for me, my answer is there. For me, my pet just died. My mom is dead. Her dad died. She has a strange relationship with her brother. She has no friends. I'm not going back. That's me. I'm sorry. I'm a realist. I'm gonna always keep it straight with you guys. I'm not going back, no matter what I learn. But I love your idea, and I'm gonna hold on to it because it's gonna give me some hope. um, okay, so next would be Patty. Or no, Udi. Sorry, Patty.
I agree with Kristen. I think she's gonna go back and fix her life. She's gonna take all these lessons from, because if the root is dead, then there's no life to the tree. That's my theory. I think she's gonna go back and mend all those fences and see if they can't continue on.
She better. She better, guys, because this is supposed to be the happiest book of the year.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Amazon's a liar if it doesn't. How about you, Patty?
I think she's gonna die, guys. So I've been thinking about it a lot. Um, and I have a couple of like when you die or like when you're about to die, they see your life flash before your eyes. And she's in some type of comatose state. And we go back to Volts, and that regret disappears. And as she goes into these other books, those regrets are going to disappear. And the book is going to get smaller. And I think that she is going to die at peace, knowing she did the best with what she had. I normally wouldn't think about that, but this author killing her cat like that, like I feel like he's ruthless, and I don't. I think it's going to be one of those where like you feel okay, but I think really what she's looking for at this point is peace, and I don't think that it's going to end with her living.
Oh, wow. If that's the case, that gives a whole sense of peace to me from my friends and loved ones I've lost to suicide. Right? Yeah. That's morbid, but also it has a silver lining. How about you, Stephanie?
I think I'm more on the positive side. I think that she is going to choose to live if she gets the choice. And I think she's going to go back to her root life because she's going to realize throughout all the lessons of the different lives that she's the one that is responsible for her happiness. She has to realize that because we all have to realize that eventually. And she's still young, so she has more. But it kind of seems like the Midnight Library is a sort of purgatory, but maybe they just do that so they can make the choice. Maybe only certain people get a Midnight Library. That's what I'm thinking.
You're another one of my little optimists. I love that. I love that. Thank you. And then finally, Victoria, this is your question. So let's hear your thoughts.
So I think the theme that I've noticed so far is that when she's going back to try to live the lives that she thought that other people like would have been happy with. I mean, all of these like, right, it's kind of like internal and also external judgments that she's like passing on each one. So I honestly think that she's going to die, but as far as the Library goes, I honestly think she might choose like a new book and like be able to keep her like knowledge and wisdom and lessons that she's learned. I do feel like there's some acceptance that has come like with the lessons that like she's not going to get Voltaire back, right? And she knows that even if she tried, Dan is probably not the person for her. And so I'm wondering if she might live a life of her, truly her choosing, not like anybody else's input, but like truly her choosing, like her architecture. So that's my hope for her, is that like maybe she fades out of this life, but through the Midnight Library gets to write an entirely new book. That's my hope.
That's a really cool spin on Kristen's question. So, and if you study reincarnation, a lot of children remember their past life when they come here, and it's a societal conditioning that causes them to forget it, you know? So that's fascinating. Of course, you would go to the woo side of it, and I love that. I love that. And then I wanted to talk about Jessica's question because it's such an important one. And I understand that it's 9 o'clock. So if you have to go, that's okay. But I did want to make sure that I did ask it. What regret do you have? Do you wish you could change your current life? Is Miss Elm trying to show Nora that she would be unhappy regardless of how her life turned out? Is she trying to show her that no one is happy despite how their life seems? Which really hit me straight in the field because social media is kind of how we base everything on now. And we all know it's fake book, not Facebook. So I'm just really curious everyone's opinion. And I wanted to start back with Victoria.
So I feel like those questions like started really freaking big and then got subsequently bigger with each one. So I hope that I can answer most of them. So can I get them one more time? I'm sorry, these are such big concepts. Sorry.
Absolutely. I did go a little quickly. So let's start with the first one. Do you have a big regret?
Oh yeah, that's why I didn't want to answer it. Okay, so I was like, no, there's some reason I don't want to do this. Honestly, I think my biggest regret has been maybe not getting like help for my own like upbringing and issues like that earlier because I feel like I've wasted a lot of my life in people please fawn mode. And yeah, it's a lot of time I can't get back. And I was even journaling today because it is the full moon in Capricorn right now. Great time to be thinking about your stability story and the way that you are foundationally supporting yourself. And so I was like really kind of like processing and we did a meditation around the throat chakra today, and like one of the questions was like if you knew that your words would be completely understood, like what would you say and who would you say it to? So like I'm already in the mindset of like just reviewing my life today. But yeah, I would say like people pleasing. I've spent a lot of time saying yes to people when I want to say no. A lot of time not speaking up for myself. and a lot of time like making myself small. And I think that a lot of my regrets stem from that continued pattern of behavior. So I would say that that would probably be my biggest regret.
So fawning is my go-to trauma response. Well, was until I read the book, The Power of. Well, I didn't read it. It was an audio book called The Power of Vulnerability, and what I recite to myself every time I want to fawn is she says, "Don't shrink, don't puff up, stand your sacred ground." So I try so hard to stay in my sacred space and do what I want to do, not what other people want me to do. But I understand that a lot. Do you wish you could change your current life? So if you did go and change those regrets, would you want it to impact your current life?
No way. My life is amazing right now. In 2019, I completed the timeline shift of all timeline shifts and left an abusive relationship. So, for me, that was like absolute, like I absolutely would not go back and change like it the way it is. I love the way my life is now. So,
That makes me so happy. Is Do you think that Miss Elm, the librarian, is trying to show Nora that she would be unhappy regardless of how her life turned out? So no matter what she changes or what she does differently, she's going to be unhappy. And it's trying to show her that really, when you peel it back a little bit, like not everybody's as happy as you think they are.
that's a really good question. I do think it's a little bit of that. Like it's been a little bit of like teaching lessons about like, okay, well, first off, be very careful the words you choose. Like that's like feels like lesson number one. Second off, um, you know what I mean? You have to understand like where you can control things and where you can't. So it's kind of like she's very gently teaching her that lesson, and anxiety often, and like especially like when you're like comparing yourself to others and the wouldas, couldas, shouldas, and that kind of like anxiety of like the spiral, like you know what I mean? It's like that pattern of like, okay, I can't see the forest for the trees almost because I'm like stuck in that pattern. And it's, yeah, I wonder if like Miss Elm will hopefully get her out of like this kind of pattern. I guess we'll see though.
I think so too. I hope she quits spinning back around to the same mountain over and over again. And that would take us to Stephanie. So, your biggest regret, if you have one.
So, my biggest regret has to do with my health. Um, I've let it stop me from doing a lot of things that I really wanted to do. So that's my biggest regret. And I wouldn't change my life right now because I believe that every decision leads to who you are right now. And even though there's a lot of growing to do, I'm still happy where I'm at. But it's just a work in progress. And then I forget the other one that the
Okay.
other
I'm so sorry. I'm just
question.
sitting here with everything you've been through and what I saw you fight through. It just amazes me that you still would say in this. You just have a wonderful outlook on life. It's really an honor to be your friend. Um,
Oh, thank you.
if you so basically you wouldn't change anything. You want to be where you are. Do you think Mrs. Elm is trying to show her that, nobody is as happy as you think they are, and you wouldn't be happy if you had different choices?
I think that's probably a little bit of it, but I also think that she wants her to see all the choices that she can make where she actually can be happy. But she's also going to teach her, I think, that with sadness, there's happiness. With happiness, there's sadness. You can't have one without the other.
I agree. I do agree with that. And then it would be Odie. Is that right? Patty. Hi, Patty. Do you have a big regret?
I do. So they all kind of tie into each other. I regret not like getting help for my mental health like a long time ago. So like I have like really, really bad OCD. And not like the I have to have things clean. It's like if you don't do this exact way, like your husband is gonna get hit by a car or you're gonna get disemboweled. Like it's hard. So like obviously I'm gonna do it the right way. But like tomorrow, like I'm supposed to go to Fazoli's in Westerville, and I'm like, you're gonna die, and it's gonna be because you wanted to go. It's just horrible, and I'm working through it. But I would have gotten help a lot earlier, but I didn't know what it was. I would change my life because thinking about like the theme of this and how much her parents impact her. I have 3 children. And if they see me wilding out, like doing weird rituals, like to make sure that my OCD doesn't come true, or magical thinking, or checking my heartbeat, like my son sometimes like he'll start checking his heartbeat. And I know he gets that from me. So I would change the way that I handle myself so that I can better impact my children, because no one can possibly you have so much influence on them. And then the last thing is, I don't know, Miss Elm, she kind of reminds me of my therapist, because, and I've heard it from the last couple of people, but he always tells me not all good, not all bad. And that's so true. And I tell myself that every single day now. It's not all good, it's not all bad. But I don't know. I don't, the jury's still out on Miss Elm. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not really sure if she's like, is she God? Is she Satan? Like, what is she? And so I've just been sitting here thinking, like, what is she doing? So I don't know. I still have to think more on the last part of Miss Elm, because I'm not so sure about her, to be honest.
I have questioned, is she her conscience? Is she a figment? I'm not 100% sure Mrs. Elm is real. I think it might be her, or is it her like guide? You know how we like spiritual guides and things. I've questioned that too. First one, theory of vulnerability is beautiful. So I have hypochondria, if you know that. You were my supervisor, so just a little bit of information of how me and Patty got to be so close. So I would have panic attacks, and I also checked, I don't anymore, I broke the habit, but I did used to check my pulse. I just want to validate you and let you know there are a lot of things that we do. And I think there's a lot worse things that your son could pick up on. So you're just a beautiful human. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
And so next would be Udi now. Udi with the booty.
Oh, you make my heart, girl. Oh, I agree with all of you guys 100%. I would definitely be, and I'm taking the steps. I am doing that currently. I am working out. I am working on my mental health. I am working on all of that. And I don't know if I would go back and change anything, because like Stephanie, I do agree that one little change is going to alter your path. And I do love who I am with my partner, my husband, and he's the best thing for me. And I don't know if I want to sacrifice that by going back and changing something, because we met in high school. And if I change any little thing, who knows, you know? And as for Mrs. Elm, I am questioning it too. Is she a figment of her imagination? Because it is somebody that she knew from her childhood. And she is giving her advice, and she is a little bit harsher than she remembers. So maybe it's her being harsh on herself.
100%. Yeah. Those were all of my thoughts on Mrs. Elm too. That's how I came to the conclusion that I wasn't 100% sure. I think oftentimes we go back to a safe childhood person, and she comforted her when her dad died. So I think that's, yeah. And then we would go on to Kristen. Do you have a big regret?
I was initially, when you asked that question, I was thinking, well, yeah, I have regrets. But then I realized that I really don't. I have thoughts of how I wish things could be different, but I differentiate that from regrets, because I've come to a place in my life where the decisions I made could not have played out any different because of where I grew up and my childhood trauma and just the conditions I was born into put me on a path where certain things were going to maybe not the specific things that happened, but certain things were going to happen. Just, I was going to make certain decisions based on these conditions. And so I don't regret that. The only, I guess if I was to say I regret, the only thing I would regret is not being born to different parents. And that's no guarantee, but I regret not having the opportunity, I guess, to be born to different parents and see if I would have a different life. Um, but I still wouldn't change where I'm at now. I mean, Billy knows, I think, a little bit more about, of course, the kind of life that I have right now, and I wouldn't change anything. And as for Mrs. Elm, I think that, I don't know, I think that she probably is like, it was someone real when Laura was growing up, and maybe now, kind of like how, like, when Dumbledore and Harry Potter comes to him when he's like kind of in death, like life or death. Dumbledore did exist. Dumbledore was real, but when you get to that point where you're in between life and death, you have like a guide or someone that was important to you or someone that was an important figure that presents themselves to you in that time of need to kind of help you through that process. So it's kind of how I'm looking at Mrs. Elm a little bit.
Absolutely, 100%. So we won't talk about your past. It's extremely private, but I just want to give everybody just a little context of why I love Kristen so much. Just a little brief thing. Kristen made some life choices and got really, really healthy, right? Recently, and has done the coolest, bravest stuff, like boxing, skydiving. She's doing this judo. This new thing, like,
It's judo and jujitsu.
yes, I envy you. Like, you're living my dream. So maybe your choices that you're making now is your way of going back to your chapters that you didn't have the opportunity. Like, you're being your own parent. You're being the good parent that you needed then. And you get to live the life you really want. And it's so inspiring to see. So thank you for sharing a little bit. I just had to tell you. Also, Victoria, before I forget, I think we hopped timelines in 2019 too. I know I'm on a different course now. I know I chose something different, but everybody's probably going to think you and I are completely out of our full moon minds. But now we will go on to Jessica.
So regrets. I mean, where do I start? I feel like I regret most of my decisions. Um, Particularly prior to moving here to Ohio. I made almost all of my decisions based on fear. So I regret that. If I could have a different life currently, would I? Yeah. First of all, I'm a sucker for a new pair of shoes. I mean, you're giving me the opportunity to try something on. But also, yeah, there's so many things I regret and so many things I wonder about. I had so many missed opportunities. Um, I I think ultimately Ms. Elm is there to show Nora that her happiness has more to do with her mindset than it has to do with her situation, and B, someone said something earlier that sparked something in my brain, and I'm going to show my age, and I'm going to quote Irma Bombeck: "The grass is always greener over the septic tank." Meaning, yeah, things look great when you freaking fertilize it with shit. I mean, and I try and tell myself that, like, looking at social media, like, I know not everyone is got all their shit together. They can't possibly. Like, I'm a smart, fairly well put together person, and I do not have my life together even the littlest bit. So that's my take on it. Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for the possibilities.
It's extremely tempting. Extremely. I get it. I do. Um, I have a quote I'd like to share with you. There's one of my favorite movies. It's called Vanilla Sky. I have it on my computer screen, and it says every day is a brand new chance to make it right. So, like, every single day we wake up, we have those little tiny choices lead us to something. So it's like we can put on a brand new pair of shoes by the little tiny choices we make. I'm hoping I hold on to that. So I'm just like you. I love variety. So, how about you, Jameson? Do you have a big regret?
I don't know about a big one. I have things that I wonder about. Like if I got the chance to go into the library and read all the books, like I have things that I wonder about, like what would my life look like if I had done these things. Um, I think when I say that I don't have regrets necessarily, I just think that I mean I wouldn't really change where I am right now. I mean, I've got my kids and I definitely wouldn't have one of them at least if I weren't where I am now because I'm the stepmom. We've never used that word, but I definitely wouldn't have them. And I don't think I would want to stay somewhere that I didn't, but if given the chance to see it, um, I think I would do that. But I don't know. I think what I hope Miss Elm is there for is like a guide. Um, I don't want to think that what she's trying to teach her is that we're all secretly miserable. No one's really as happy as they pretend to be. Like that makes me so sad. Because I don't know, like I feel like I put on a good face sometimes, but it isn't so much I'm not as happy as I pretend to be. It's just more like um I'm gonna be thankful for where I am and I'm gonna go from there, maybe.
I see you live in that state of gratitude and being present. And I said today on a comment that I thought you were the embodiment of poetry. You live your life so authentically, and you show up for these amazing things. I would, just watching you do things that I would just not be able to is so inspiring. Like I feel like I'm a few stages behind your evolution, and it's so cool to watch you walk in the shoes that I can't wait to. So, how about you, Emily? Do you have any um, regrets in your big chapter book?
Um, I used to live my life with a lot of regrets, but I realized I don't anymore. I've had some pretty terrible things I wish I didn't have to go through, but I feel like my life and my choices, my life now and the person that I am is a culmination of those choices. They make me who I am. I wouldn't be as strong as I am. I wouldn't be as resilient as I am if Phoenix Feather, a lot should have killed me in a lot of different ways, and it didn't. So I don't now, and I wouldn't pick a different life because, I mean, could I have not picked my abusive ex? Yes, but I wouldn't have had my kids. Um, I probably wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have moved to Ohio if I didn't do that. I wouldn't have finished my degree. I wouldn't, there's all those things. So I wouldn't change my life, and I don't really live it I don't really live it with regrets. I live without regrets now because I feel like the choices that I made, even if I wish I had made a different choice, um, I made the choice I made with the information that I had at the time.
Mhm.
I made it in the place that I was at the time. And I'm looking back at it with 2020 vision. I'm looking at it with 46 years of experience, and I may have made that choice at 18. So I can't really get mad at myself for it. I learned the lesson. I think that Miss was actually her librarian at school. And I think that she played a very strong role in her life because her home life was so disjointed. And so I think that she's a guide. Um, I believe that when you're in that place at that in between, when you need the guidance, it's always somebody who has impacted you in a great way, whether it was positive or negative is a hard one to say. And so I think what Miss Elm is doing is showing her not necessarily that everybody is miserable or that you would be miserable regardless of the life that you choose, but that the choices that you make in life will change that trajectory. But there's always going to be something that you wish you would have tried. That you would have been brave enough at that point in time to make that choice. But at the same time, you can be brave now. So I've done a lot of stuff in my life, and every single time I wanted to reinvent myself, I did. Do I wonder sometimes if I had stayed in California and continued doing what I was doing for work, which I did a lot of commercials and film work and stuff when I was a child. And if I continued doing that, would I be where my friends are now? Maybe, but maybe not. So I loved that I had the experience, and I love that those things made me part of who I am, and that I have the connections I have, because those people are still very dear to me, but I wouldn't be where I am. And I think that that's the point that Miss Elm is trying to show and allow Nora to learn on her own without outwardly and outright saying, this is the point of this process. So I think everybody's library is different. Everybody's guide is different. Everybody's opportunities are different. And that is part of what Miss Elm was trying to show her.
I think so too. I do like the idea of having the ability there, the autonomy to actually make a choice though. I do like that that is an option. Patty, I saw Ruby too. Oh my gosh, I miss her little face, her little chubby cheeks. This is so cute.
I don't know where I'm at. This is being.
Oh, oh my goodness. Hi, baby.
This is me.
Oh, hi. Hi, guys.
Yeah, they were like, okay, it's 9 o'clock. We're coming in. And I said, okay, that's
Come
fine.
on in. Everybody's welcome. Thank you for showing them. I've missed them.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, we will do our raffle for the contest of the quiz that we did next time when we start. I'm sorry we ran over a little bit. It's a lot for this book, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody got their voice heard and appreciated, and I'm just so excited for us to go forward. I did want to tell you and ask for everybody's opinion. So thumbs up if the speed in which we're reading is okay. Do you want to go faster or slower? If you do, put a thumbs down. If you're cool, thumbs up. Good. Okay, then that's great. Then we are going to, for our next one, it is going to be, hold on, I have to add it up here. I had it earlier. We're going to page, I think, 192. That's 167. Bear with me, guys. I want to get us on a chapter. Okay. So we're going to go to page 190. And then for those that are listening on Audible or on Libby, it is called Equidistance. Equidistance is what it's called.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody know how to say it right? Is it equidistant?
Equidistant?
It'd be
Yeah,
equidistant,
there you
yeah.
Equidistant.
Equidistant, yeah.
Equidistant.
Yeah, equidistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, you can tell I'm a total bookworm and lived most of my life in books. I can't pronounce anything, but can read everything. So
In Northeast Ohio, it was equidistant.
well, I can't wait to see what happens. And I'll make all the announcements to the merch and the podcast and link everything on our Facebook page. Emily, thank you for being here and being our newest member with Patty. Patty's such a familiar face to me. She's like family. Thank you for being here. I love seeing all of you. I hope you have a great week. Happy reading. Make sure to take time for yourself. It's difficult. So love and light. See you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.